I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement. People's Memorial Association would like to acknowledge the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Coast Salish, Duwamish, and Suquamish nations on which we work and live. Got a couple standard housekeeping items before we get going. We're going to be recording today's presentation, and Emily will be sharing out the recording as well as our presenters' slides. So you can refer back to those anytime, and you don't have to worry about scrambling to get all your notes down. Hopefully you can just sit and absorb all this good information and then kind of focus on that process and refer back later. We're sure there's going to be lots of questions about the subject. There often are, so we've made sure we've got enough time to tackle as many questions as you can pepper us with. We're going to have you hold until the end though, because I know Rebecca's got a lot to cover today. And I think she's also almost got it perfected to anticipate all of those most common questions. But like I said, if we miss something, we've got time at the end to tackle it. So if this is your first time joining us, I'm seeing some familiar faces and I saw a couple familiar ones on the Zoom. Welcome back, but just in case, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about us at People's Memorial. My name's Beverly. I'm the Communications Manager for People's Memorial Association, and we are the oldest and largest memorial society in the United States. We were founded back in 1939 right here in Seattle, and we provide funeral education and consumer advocacy services to all Washingtonians. To date, over 219,000 folks have become members of PMA, and of those, about 71,000 of them are currently living. So as you can imagine, we stay very busy in our office. There's only 4 of us on staff, so they keep us hopping. Okay, well, I'm going to keep on trucking here. So like I said, education is one of our biggest callings in terms of how we serve our community. We do community classes like this and all over the state, in person, online, as well as hosting a real bevy of free resources on our website and our Instagram and our Facebook. And like I always joke, if I can ever get my colleagues to learn a bit of dance choreography, you'll see us over on TikTok. If you haven't been over there, there really are some wonderful educational resources on TikTok. It would truly dazzle you. So maybe you'll see us over there. But in the meantime, we've also been keeping ourselves very busy with an assortment of advocacy issues. Generally, we're focused on the state level legislature, but we've also been gratified to get to participate in some hopeful change at the federal level as well to expand the 1984 funeral rule, which is the only federal law that governs the funeral industry. We were instrumental in getting it passed back in the 80s, and we're hoping to expand it to protect consumers even more. And kind of just our general advocacy priorities, we focus a lot on increasing funeral choice so that people have more options that meet their needs, looking at increasing price transparency in a notoriously opaque industry, the funeral industry, and then also protecting cultural rights. If you've been a Washingtonian for even more than a minute, I'm sure that you are very well aware that this is an incredibly amazingly diverse place to live, and all of the folks that call Washington home deserve equal access to affordable cremation, burial, alkaline hydrolysis, natural organic reduction, and all the meaningful spiritual and cultural practices that go into mourning the lives of those we lost and celebrating them all the same. So, I mean, this is a pretty beefy to-do list. Like I said, we stay very busy, the 4 of us, but we love the work that we get to do. And I know the real reason that we're all here is actually to get to know End of Life Washington. And Rebecca is joining us here today. She is a client service coordinator over at End of Life Washington. So I hope you'll join me in welcoming her as I hand off the Spice Girl headset and I swap over slides for you.
Thanks for bearing with our technological reality.
And now when I try to read this stuff online, it says you need to search There, yes, so so you need to save all the articles on. Okay, are they? They're in the. No, they're on TV.
And then do you want to use your clicker?
Apple TV is a streaming. service. Yeah, I know. I told Doug we started looking into it, and he was telling me, well, yeah, I didn't think you had. So,
Because yeah, it's not moving, that's why.
well, you get that. And
It's like back into the
Start. All right, so hello folks, sorry for the technical troubles. I think we're going to try and pull it up here in person, but I think the people online can see us. So my name is Rebecca Hudson. I'm the Client Services Coordinator at End of Life Washington. So I really do lots of direct client support. I run our volunteer program. I wear many hats over there, and I'll talk a little bit more in a minute about the realm of things that End of Life Washington does. So I'm going to have to push the buttons, right? All right, so End of Life Washington. So we really have a sort of three-pronged approach to the world. So we do education and resources. So we do talks like this. We go out into the community. We also work with different hospices, hospital providers, educating staff, educating patients. We also have a vast array of resources available on our website. So we're really sort of the clearinghouse for information on medical aid and dying, on voluntarily stopping eating and drinking, and on advanced care planning. So we have lots of information on our website if you want to dig more into those things. And we also do direct client support. So we have about 85 volunteers statewide that work one-on-one with clients and their loved ones to talk to them about their end-of-life choices and to help guide people through different end-of-life options here in Washington State. And then our last sort of arm is advocacy and public policy. So we do work in Olympia with the legislature. We were instrumental in getting the 2008 Death with Dignity law passed in Washington State. And this summer we got an amendment to that law passed. So we do lots of work on advocacy and legislation on end-of-life choices in Washington. So planning ahead, preparing for the unexpected. So this this presentation is going to be about advanced care planning. It's going to be about, although the slide says unexpected, really we should all expect that eventually we will need these documents, that we need to have these documents in place to plan both for things that we aren't expecting, for accidents, for unanticipated injuries, for unanticipated illnesses, but also eventually we're all going to need someone to speak for us. We're all going to need to have these documents. So really both the expected and the unexpected. Okay. Yeah. So this is a picture from a local artist, Vikram Madan, and he does a series of these different little grim Reaper pictures. So talking about death can be uncomfortable, it can be challenging. So this is really just to acknowledge that, to say that we are going to be talking about some tough stuff today. We are going to be talking about some challenging things. It may bring up feelings, it may be uncomfortable, and that's okay. We often use euphemisms in this society, things like pushing up daisies, bought the farm. I generally try and avoid those, so I do use very frank and direct language because it's easier and I want to be clear with what I'm talking about. So just a little bit of lightheartedness there. Okay. So really the first step in advanced care planning and figuring out what you want your plans to be in the future is to complete what we call a values worksheet. We have one of these available on our website. They're also available on other end-of-life choice websites. And what it is a document that really guides you through what's important to your life, what's important to how you function, how you go through your day-to-day. And as things change, as you grow older, as you get illnesses, what are the things that you want to maintain? Is your independence important? Is freedom from pain important? Is being able to communicate with your family and friends important? What are the things that you really want to focus on? What does living well mean for you? How do you define quality of life? What is important to your independence? The answers to these questions are going to be different for everybody. And so we have these worksheets that you can kind of go through, lay out what things are important to you, and that can help you fill out your advanced directive. So we're really going to dive deep into advanced directives in this conversation. And sometimes people struggle with knowing what to put on their advanced directive and how to answer the advanced directive, how to answer the questions about the kind of treatments you would and wouldn't want. Completing a values worksheet can both help you figure out sort of what you would want in specific situations, but can also be a really useful tool in talking to your family and your loved ones, helping them understand why you're making the decisions you're making, why you're making the choices you're making, really kind of help you and everyone around you understand what's important to you. So planning ahead. So the first thing that you want to do is to, well, I guess the first thing the values worksheet, but is to choose your support team. So your support team looks like your medical providers. It looks like your loved ones who you're going to talk to about your choices and anybody else who is going to support you. If you have not talked to your primary care provider about your end of life choices, about what you would want in a situation where you had a terminal illness or if you were in an unconscious state or that kind of thing, I really do encourage you to go ahead and have those conversations with your primary care provider. Make sure that they're going to be willing to adhere to your wishes. Make sure that they're going to be willing to support you and make sure that they have an understanding about you, about what you want. These conversations are also important to have with your families and friends. Make sure that the people around you know what your values are, know what's important to you, and know what kind of choices you would want in the future. So we're going to dive into advanced directives now. The first part of an advanced directive is what we call the living will. So there are really two parts to this. There's the healthcare directive and then the healthcare agent or the durable power of attorney form. Most of the time in Washington state, you will find these combined into one document. So in Washington state, there is no specific document for an advanced directive. There is no specific living will. There's no specific durable power of attorney. It just has to meet certain formatting requirements. So End of Life Washington has them available on our website. Honoring Choices Northwest has them available on their website. Some hospital systems have them. Lots of lawyers' offices have them. You don't have to have a specific document. You just have to have a document that meets certain requirements. The healthcare directive really says what you want to have happen or not happen. And then the healthcare agent, the durable power of attorney, says who you want to make the decisions for you if you're unable to. And again, most of the time now you will find that those two documents are sort of combined into one. So the durable power of attorney for healthcare. The durable power of attorney for healthcare is a document where you will name who is going to make decisions for you if you are unable to. So this is where you lay out, do you want it to be your spouse? Do you want it to be an adult child? Do you want it to be a friend? If you're in a situation where you are unable to make decisions for yourself, who is going to do that? If you do not have a durable power of attorney for healthcare, there is a surrogate list under Washington state law that providers will automatically go to. So sort of the first person on that list is a spouse or registered domestic partner, then it's adult children, then it's siblings. There are two problems with this. One is sometimes the person that's on the surrogate list might not be the person that you want to make decisions for you, especially if maybe you don't want the people that are your family of origin making your decisions. Maybe you don't want your adult children making decisions. Maybe you want somebody specific. So unless that surrogate list really matches up, you should have a durable power of attorney. The other issue is that for any category where there are multiple people, so siblings, adult children, that kind of thing, everybody has to agree. So if you don't have a durable power of attorney and the decisions end up legally falling to your adult children, they would all have to agree. And if they don't agree, it ends up being a big mess. It's not easy for providers to make a choice. And I will say that providers are always going to err on the side of more treatment and more care. So if, for example, you don't want to be kept alive on a ventilator if you were unconscious with no chance of recovery, and you have 3 adult kids and 2 of them are like, you know, mom said that she wouldn't want this, let's turn off the ventilator. And one is like, no, 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 no. If you don't have a durable power of attorney, if you don't have one of them named, you're going to stay on that ventilator because the provider's never going to make the decision to withdraw treatment without clear indication. So completing the healthcare directive. The healthcare directive is the part of the document that really lays out the sort of things that you would or wouldn't want. And I will say it's impossible for any directive to talk about every possible scenario, right? There's an infinite number of possible scenarios of different things that could happen with different disease progressions, different sorts of injuries. So it's really more of a general, if you were in unconscious state and no chance of recovery, would you want to be on a ventilator or not? Would you want pain medications with the knowledge that that amount of pain medication could possibly hasten your death? These sorts of more general overarching questions. And so they're really a chance to lay out the sort of things you would want, the sort of things that you wouldn't want. Different directives are going to ask different questions. So as I talked about, there's no standardized form in Washington state. Our form on the End of Life Washington website, I think, asks some important questions, such as if you end up in a facility that is not willing to honor your wishes, would you want to be transferred? So in Washington state, we have a number of restrictive healthcare institutions that don't necessarily honor all of the legal end of life choices here in Washington State. So if you were to end up in one of those healthcare institutions, would you prefer to be transferred somewhere that would be more willing to honor your wishes? So ours kind of gets down into a little bit more of what we really think is important for personal choice and autonomy. But again, any of the forms that you find online will be good. I really encourage people to just read through a form and sort of make sure that it aligns with their questions, that it aligns with the things that are important to them, and fill out the one that sort of is the most meaningful to you. So completing your advance directive. So in order to complete an advance directive in Washington State, you do not need a lawyer, you just need 2 witnesses. So you can do this at home with your spouse and a neighbor and a friend. You can fill it out. You can name the person that you want to be your decision maker. You can list out your wishes, and then you sign it in front of 2 witnesses. The witnesses can't be the person that you're naming as your agent, and only one of them can be related to you. So it's good to have a neighbor or a friend or somebody else sign that form for you. In Washington State, copies of advance directives are just as valid as original. So after you have signed your advance directive and had it witnessed by 2 people, you can also have it notarized. A lot of them have spots for notaries. It doesn't make it any more legally valid, and sometimes people like that notary on there just to feel a little extra protection. You're going to make copies of the document, and you're going to give copies to anyone who might need it. So that includes all of your healthcare providers, and your healthcare providers can and should scan it into your electronic medical record. You're going to obviously give a copy to the person who you have named to make your decisions, your durable power of attorney. I also encourage people to give copies to other family members who might end up being called in an event of an emergency or a healthcare situation. And then you want a couple of copies for you. I would encourage you to keep a copy in your glove compartment. And if you're traveling, I just keep a copy in my suitcase so that if I know if I end up somewhere else, that I'll have that with me. So not all states are going to legally recognize Washington State's advance directive, but most of them will take it into consideration. So there's a little bit of differences state by state, what makes a document legal, what they require. Even if you're traveling to a state that doesn't recognize it, or even out of the country, it's still a good thing to have because it's still going to be an indication of the kind of things that you would want and who you would want to make those decisions. Make sure that the copies are somewhere accessible. Putting this in a safe in your basement is not the place to put this document. You want to make sure it's somewhere where people can get to it. You want to update as needed, and it's pretty easy to update this document. You just make a new one. So if you need to update a phone number or address on the form, either yours or the person who you've named as your agent, you can just make those updates and initial it. But any other updates, so if you're going to change your answers, if you're going to change the person making decisions, you're going to make a new document, you're going to ask for all the copies that you've given out, destroy those, and the most recently dated copy, the most recently dated version is going to be the legal one. You only need one of these. You don't need to do multiple copies with multiple organizations. Sometimes you'll go to a hospital or you'll go to a new clinic and they'll ask you to fill out their advance directive. If you already have one, it's more appropriate to say, I already have this advance directive. Please scan this into my medical record. Okay, so some additional directives. So End of Life Washington has, because of really people reaching out to us asking if something like this existed, we have created a Living with Dementia Mental Health Care Directive. So this is a directive really for people who are either at high risk of dementia, maybe you have a family history, or in the early stages of dementia. And it really lays out the kind of care that you would and would not want, how you would want to be treated. Would you prefer to be in a facility versus at home with in-home care? And I will say that if you go to our website and you look at this document, I will just give a warning that it does go into some pretty nitty-gritty and pretty specific stuff. So it asks things about, like, if you're in a facility and you have show interest, so romantic interest in somebody else in that facility, but are married and have forgotten that you're married because you are suffering from dementia, how would you want that situation addressed? It talks about driving and how you would want people to talk to you about no longer being able to drive and what they would do with your keys and what they would do with your car. So it really goes into some of the nitty-gritty situations that happen with people with dementia, and can be very helpful, both in laying out what you want, but also in starting conversations with your loved ones about the kind of things that you wouldn't want to have happen. Along with this, we also have a document called My Instructions for Oral Feeding and Drinking. So Frequently in stages of dementia, people naturally stop wanting food and water. They stop showing interest. They stop wanting to drink. And it can be a way for folks to hasten their death and to safely transition into death comfortably. We don't want to force feed people. We don't want to give people food and drink without their wishes. And so this document allows you to say, if I'm saying no to food, if I'm turning my head away, if I'm closing my mouth when you bring a spoon to my mouth, don't force feed me. Don't give me hydration and nutrition. I don't want it. You can also say the other way, if you really want people to give you food and water and you really want to be, kind of encouraged to eat and drink, you can also lay out those wishes there. I will say most people that fill out this document are folks who are saying, I don't want to be force fed. I don't want people giving me food and water if I'm not asking for it. So POLST, this is the last document that we're going to talk about. So POLST stands for a portable order for life-sustaining treatment. The folks that need to fill out a POLST are people with a diagnosis of a serious illness or an end stages of life. Sometimes very elderly people, even if they're pretty healthy, will fill out a POLST. And this is a medical order that documents your choices regarding life-sustaining treatment. So all of the other documents that we have talked about today, you can fill out at home, on your own, with your friends and family, have a couple people witness it. The POLST form, you do need to fill out in a provider's office with a medical provider present. And they'll go through it with you. And it's green on this screen because it is a bright green form. So it really lays out if you're in a situation, this used to be called an out of hospital DNR. So it lays out if you're in a situation, let's say you have cancer and you're at home and you have a heart attack and somebody calls 911 and the EMTs come and they say, should we do CPR and try and revive you? If you already have cancer, you already know you're dying. Do you want to have CPR and be defibrillated from this heart attack you've had? Or do you want this to be the way that you die? So a POLST is a place where you can lay out, if something happens, if EMTs show up at my house, I don't want this life-sustaining treatment. I don't want CPR. I don't want to be intubated. This form should follow you wherever you go. So if you move, if you go to different care facilities, anything like this, this document should go with you. It is bright green for a reason so that EMTs and other emergency medical people will be able to easily see it. And we suggest that people put it on their refrigerator, above their bed if they're in a hospital bed at home, something like that, somewhere very obvious and very clear for folks to see. So you can't quite see the top of my slide, but this is sort of just the flow chart of advanced directives. So all adults, everybody who is 18 or older should have an advanced directive, which includes the healthcare directive where you lay out your wishes and that durable power of attorney for healthcare. You should update these periodically or when something changes. So you have a big change in your health situation, or the person you've named as an agent you have a falling out with, or you get married to a new person who you want to be your agent. You should update the documents periodically or when something changes. I will also say sometimes people sort of assume that it should be a specific person that they name, and it is really up to you, and it's a really personal decision. And sometimes people can get offended if like, oh, I assumed you would name me as your healthcare power of attorney. And it's okay to have a conversation with that person and just say, I'll give you my own personal example. Before I had a partner, it was my brother who was my durable power of attorney and not my parents. And my parents were a little bit upset when they found out about it. And the reason is because I know how hard it would be for my parents to make the decision to take me off of life support. And I personally don't want to be, intubated and on a ventilator, there's no chance of recovery. I knew it would be tough for my brother too, but that he would make the decision. And I knew it'd be really, really tough for my parents to make that call. And I had the conversation with them and I just like, I don't want to put you in that position. I don't want you to be the person that has to make that decision. And they understood that and got it. And it kind of went on as well. I also had a client one time who actually named her ex-husband as her durable power of attorney. She had had a previous cancer experience 10 years ago when they were still married. He had seen her through years of cancer treatment, knew her wishes, knew her values, knew the kind of things that she wanted, that she didn't want. And so when she was diagnosed with cancer again and was updating her durable power of attorney, he was the person that she named instead of her adult children. She named her ex-husband because she knew that he was really clear about the kind of things that she wouldn't want. So it's okay to really have deep think about who do you want to be that person. It doesn't have to be the first person that comes to mind. It doesn't have to be the sort of default person that you think it should be. And to really just think about what, who's going to make those decisions, who's going to be able to make the decisions that you want to have made. If you're living with a serious illness, if you have a diagnosis of a serious illness, then you need to evaluate the need for a POLST. So everybody should have the healthcare directive and the durable power of attorney. If you have a serious illness, you should evaluate the need for a POLST, and that also you will update as your status changes. So you get sicker, you get better, things change, you're going to want to update your POLST. If you have all of those documents, then congratulations, your end of life wishes have been documented. So a little bit of a summary, you're going to start, but you can complete a values worksheet. This is not a required thing. This is really just something that is out there and that exists to help people have conversations, to help people talk through things. You're going to create the advanced directive that talks about the healthcare directive, your healthcare agent. You're going to evaluate the need for POLST, and you're going to choose your support team. The other thing I will say is that all of these documents are wonderful, but the most important thing is having the conversations with the folks that are going to be making these decisions. So if you've named somebody as your durable power of attorney of healthcare, one, make sure that they know that they're your durable power of attorney. And two, other than just showing them the document, you really want to have ongoing conversations about them, talking to them about the kind of things that you would want, the kind of things that you wouldn't want. If you're sitting and watching TV and you're like watching Law and Order and something happens, you're like, oh, I wouldn't want that to happen to me. That's a great time to just be like, hey, Joe, as my power of attorney, I just want you to know that if I'm ever in this situation, please make this choice, right? Like use your real life situation. I will say Thanksgiving is coming up. Thanksgiving is a time of year that I always talk to my durable power of attorney and really all of my family and friends about advanced directives. Not saying you need to do it at Thanksgiving, but I do show up at the Thanksgiving table with updated powers of attorney documents and advanced directives. And it's like, I am grateful that I am healthy enough right now to be able to have these conversations and to be able to talk to folks about this. I'm grateful that my family and my friends are all around me, and now is a great time to have these conversations. So find those times when you can have these conversations, and it really should be an ongoing and a sort of evolving conversation. Yeah. Yes, healthcare agent and durable power. You'll also hear it called a healthcare proxy. They're sort of all different names. So my last slide is really a slide about People's Memorial Association. Thank you, Beverly. That these are all the other things that you should think about towards end of life planning, and that's sort of the rest of this Ducks in a Row series. And People's Memorial are the folks to reach out to about that. All right. So helping us educate others. So I didn't talk to you about these things, and I encourage you to go out and talk to other folks about them as well. So your friends, your coworkers, people in your personal network, your community, your healthcare providers, other organizations that you're a part of. Everybody should have a durable power of attorney for healthcare. Everybody should have a healthcare directive. These are not controversial documents, right? These are just legal documents that lay out what you want and make sure that your wishes are honored. So I really encourage you to speak to your friends, speak to your family, and make sure that everyone that you love and care about has these documents as well. So supporting End of Life Washington. So there are sort of three ways to support End of Life Washington. If you are a medical provider or know a medical provider, we are always looking for folks to come and help us out. We're also always looking for volunteers, both to do direct client support and also to come out and do presentations like this one. We also do a lot of presentations on Zoom. And we are 100% supported by individual donor dollars. So all of our services are at no cost, and we are always open to donations. Thank you. No. There you go. That's our main office number. I can do that. Yes.
Your current primary care physician works for an organization that's religious based, but you would want to be moved if you were in their facility. Is it appropriate to tell that, when you have your primary care person, say, here's my document, but I want you to know that I do want to get moved out of this facility because I'm aware of
So
this organization.
Yeah.
In agreement with where I'm at.
So for the folks online, the question was, if your primary care provider is part of a religious healthcare institution, and if you were to end up in that facility, you would want to be moved, is it appropriate to have that conversation? It is absolutely appropriate to have that conversation. I think one, your provider needs to know what your wishes are and what your desires are. I think that there is also a world in which some of our healthcare providers do have a little bit of say in their organizations, and they're more providers that understand that the restrictions from healthcare institutions are detrimental to patients. They can speak up about it and hopefully, long picture wise create change. So I do think that it's really appropriate to have that conversation. I think it's also appropriate to ask, like, if I'm in this situation, do you have somebody else you could refer me to? Do you have another facility that you would be able to refer me to? And kind of play out what the scenario would look like, and how supportive they would be of you transferring, how they would help you through that process.
Would they then scan your directive in their system, even though it's not their system paper?
Yes. Yes. So any healthcare system that has an electronic healthcare record. So if you have an electronic record with a provider's office, with an institution, with a system, they can and should scan your advanced directive into that system, regardless of what format your advanced directive is in. And I believe they're actually legally required to do that. So they absolutely should be doing that, regardless of what format and regardless of what it says. Even if they don't agree with it, it is your right to make those choices. It is your right to express your wishes. So sorry for the folks online. The question was, can a provider's office scan in a document even if it's not on their paper? Which the answer is yes, they can and should.
Did I miss it, or do you have a section in your organization?
So the question is, do we have a hospice section in our organization? So we are not hospice providers. We work very closely with hospices to help support hospice clients who are wanting education on their end of life options and are wanting to pursue things like medical aid in dying or voluntarily stopping eating and drinking, or any of the other things that end of life Washington supports folks. But we work with all hospices in the state of Washington. We work with the religious ones, we work with the secular ones, we work with the for-profit, the nonprofit, and we work with all of them pretty well. So I don't know if there's a specific question there, but we are not hospice. Yeah. I mean, we're not over them. We are just we're a part of the system. Yeah, we are a resource for them. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and so the question is what to do with the actual documents, what to do with the actual paperwork. So again, in Washington State, copies are just as valid as the original. I do recommend that you hold on to the original and put it somewhere safe, but not locked away. So maybe in a folder that's very brightly labeled, like in case of emergency, in a drawer somewhere where your loved ones know, like, this is the in case of emergency drawer. And then make sure that your durable power of attorney has a copy. Again, make sure it's scanned into your medical record. Some people, especially if you also have things like a POLST, you can clip it behind the POLST on your refrigerator. You could also just clip, if you don't have a POLST, clip your advanced directive under a magnet or on a clip on your refrigerator or somewhere else obvious. Put one in your glove compartment, put one in your suitcase, and make sure other people know where they are. So make sure your durable power of attorney has one and knows where it is, and anyone else that you live with or who is likely to be around you if you were to have a medical emergency, that they know where those documents are. Did you have a suggestion, Ben, that I didn't bring up? Yeah. 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 Yeah, absolutely. And there's no harm in having them locked up with their financial paperwork as long as they're also elsewhere. So make a bunch of copies, put them everywhere where somebody might find them. Yeah, so the question is, how do you update it if something changes? And as Bev pointed out, during COVID, lots of people sort of witnessed what ventilation looked like and what that could be and changed their mind about their desires around that. So in order to update it, you need to make a new one. Now, ideally, you kind of gather all those many copies that I've just told you to make, and you pull it out of your glove compartment and you pull it out of your suitcase, and you either put an X through it, or you tear it up, or you stick it through a shredder. And if you if somebody, if your, sister's cousin who had a copy can't find the copy that you gave them, what's going to end up being true is that the most recently dated copy is the legally valid one. So ideally, you're getting all the old copies, you're marking through them or shredding them or tearing them up, but you just make a new document, you sign it again, you have 2 witnesses, and that is going to be the updated and legally valid document. Sure. So the question is, I mentioned working with hospitals, both religious and non-religious. What does that mean, and what impact will that have on the document? So in Washington State, about 50% of our healthcare institutions are Catholic-based, meaning that they have certain directives that they have to follow. When it comes to, this is primarily around the big things are reproductive health and end-of-life care. So the religious institutions have restrictions on the type of reproductive health care that they are able to provide, and they also have restrictions on the kind of end-of-life care that they're able to provide. What this means in terms of your documents, as I said, the documents aren't really tied to specific institutions. Some institutions are not going to be able to, if what you have said in your document is, in this situation, I do not want to be kept alive. I want to have life-sustaining or life-extending measures removed. I want you to withhold life-extending care. Some hospital systems are going to be reticent to do that. They're not going to want to take you off a ventilator. They're not going to want to stop giving you artificial hydration and nutrition. So if you have laid out in your documents, I don't want these things, I don't want artificial hydration, nutrition, I don't want to be on a ventilator. Hopefully you've also mentioned, if I'm in a place where they're not going to honor that, they'll move me. So that's why it's important to have these wishes in your document, so that if you end up in one of those facilities, the facility would say, like, okay, this is what they wanted, we need to transfer them to an institution that can honor their wishes. Or it also gives power to your durable power of attorney to push a little bit more and say, no, they have a legal right to this care. They have a legal right to have this life-sustaining and life-extending treatment removed. And it's really kind of going to be a difficult conversation between your durable power of attorney and the healthcare providers in that institution. But the more documents you have, the more sort of evidence there is that this is what your wishes are, the more likely that a provider is going to end up following those wishes. Did that answer your question? Do you have a follow-up? No. Yeah. So I will also say, you do also have the option on these documents of naming an alternate agent. And what I would recommend is that either your primary agent or your alternate agent be somewhere who can get here pretty quickly, and that is local. So sometimes the person that you really want to make those decisions is in New York, is across the country, is far away. That's okay. Make sure that there's an updated phone number on the document. Make sure that it's going to be a phone number that somebody actually answers. And then I would strongly suggest that if your primary agent is somebody who is far away, that your secondary agent be someone who is nearby or close enough to get here in case of emergency. Most of these decisions can be made over the phone. And sometimes these conversations are really tough. People don't want to have them over the phone. Sometimes agents feel like they need to see their person before they make decisions. So I would recommend that you have that alternate agent be someone who is nearby. If that's not an option, if everybody who you trust to make decisions lives across the country, it is better to have those people who live across the country named as your agent than to not have an agent. There is an organization called End of Life Choices New York. I think you Google it, I'm sure you can find it, End of Life Choices New York. They do much of the same stuff that we do, and then a little bit things are a little bit different. New York doesn't have quite the same laws that we have, so things are a little bit different state by state. That's first, I think, primarily New York City. If you're in Westchester, I know there's also the Westchester End of Life Coalition that produces advanced directive documents. So I really recommend Googling End of Life Choices in New York or Westchester End of Life Coalition.
Don't have a medical background about what you need for interventions because you don't really know what the consequences are, or you might not even know what the procedure.
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations for folks that are feeling kind of intimidated by this, or any tips for how to try through this to make sure that they're ready?
Yeah, so if you have, so the question was, people are sometimes intimidated by the paperwork. They don't know what decisions to make, might not even realize the consequences of a decision one way or the other, and sort of how to navigate that. My first suggestion would be that if you have a primary care provider that you have a good relationship with, is to take the documents in and talk to them. Most providers, and this is true for folks that are on Medicare and Medicaid, can bill for a end of life planning like appointment. Otherwise, you may need to pay out of pocket. I am not an expert on how the insurance industry works, but I know it can happen. So I would recommend taking that into your primary care provider's office, asking, and just letting them know, I really want to know, what does this mean? What does intubation mean? Like, what does that actually look like? What happens if I say yes here? If you have other specific questions, if you are in Washington State, you can call and reach out to End of Life Washington, and we're happy to answer questions. We're happy to talk through different, we are not medical providers. We can't answer the medical questions, but we can kind of talk through scenarios and some logistics. If you're elsewhere, again, you can look up, if you generally Google End of Life Choices and the name of your state, if an organization like us exists, it'll come up for you pretty easily. Yeah, so the question was to talk a little bit more about the values worksheet. So what the values worksheet does is it gets into some specifics of things like, is it more important to you to be free of pain or to be able to communicate and be present with your loved ones? So sometimes if you're in a situation where you're on hospice or you have a terminal illness, you may be in a position where the amount of pain medication that you need to control your pain makes you a little loopy, makes you sleepy, makes you not able to communicate with your family very well. So a values worksheet will say, like, it's really important for me that I am able to communicate with my family for as long as possible, and I'd rather be in a little bit more pain but able to communicate, or vice versa. My family, I've had plenty of time with them. I want this pain to be gone. Give me all the pain meds. And ask questions like, is it more important for you to be in your own home for as long as possible, or to be somewhere where you're taken care of? Because again, you might be in a situation where your choice is sort of, I can stay in my own home with less healthcare support, less people taking care of me, less sort of day-to-day support for my activities of daily living, not as much help showering and that kind of thing. Or I can go into a facility where I'm not going to be in my own home, but there's going to be somebody bringing me meals, there's going to be somebody helping me shower, do all of these things. So it really digs down into, what are the things that are important to you? What do you want to prioritize? What are your values? And it can help you realize what's important to you, kind of help you think those scenarios, and also gives an opportunity to talk about it with your loved ones, to talk about it with your family, and especially people that might not initially agree with your decisions on your healthcare directive, might be like, why would you choose that, mom? Why would you make that decision? You can go through the values worksheet with them and be like, look, these are the things that are important to me. This is what I am really prioritizing in my life. This is what a quality of life means to me. This is how I want to live, and can help folks understand, oh, that's why mom's making these decisions. That's why she wants this specific stuff. Something that I wish I had. The question was, is there things that I wish people would ask me about, or that I wish people had chances about? Just not to call out, but I think most of the people in this room are well over the age of 18. And I will say, you know, and this is not exactly an answer to your question, but I wish we talked about this more for young folks in our lives. I think in general, these presentations end up drawing an audience of, you know, older folks. They're the people that tune in. They're the people that are interested in this. They're the people that are thinking about this. And yes, while you may be closer to the end of your life, likely, things can happen to anybody. Anybody can get hit by a bus. Anybody can get an unexpected illness. And I actually think that it can be more challenging for people in the sort of like 18 to 30-year-old bracket to have the person that they want to be making the decisions, make the decisions, to understand what their values are and what their values aren't. Most folks, by the time they kind of get to me and they're a little bit older, they've thought about this a lot. They've made these decisions before. They've seen, you know, a loved one or a friend or family go through hospice. They have a little bit of experience and kind of have an idea. And for young folks, they really don't. And it's really like completely fresh to them. So if you have young people in your life, if you have kids or grandkids that are in that younger age bracket, talk to them about this too. Help them fill out an advanced directive. It's just as important that they have an advanced directive as you have an advanced directive. So that's sort of what I wish, is that we were a little bit better at talking about it to our younger folks. Yeah. Yeah. So the comment from in person was, when he was coming here tonight, his wife said, I don't need that. You know everything I want. So there are a couple of things, you know, as I mentioned earlier, there's no way to ever talk about every single scenario, right? We can never have a conversation with our loved one about every possible scenario. So I really view these documents as a gift to the people that you're naming as your healthcare agent, right? If you're the one that's going to be making these decisions, the more evidence you have, the more documents you have, the more things in writing you have that your wife has said, this is what I want, this is what I don't want, the easier it's going to be for you to make those decisions in the tough moment. You get in a situation where, you know, something horrible has happened, you're in a hospital, there's, you know, lights, there's beeping, there's people asking you questions, there's people running in and out, and you're like, okay, I know what she wants, but what about this specific scenario? Because we didn't talk about this specific scenario. So having these documents to fall back on and go back and look through and be like, okay, well, this is sort of in line with this. This is what you talked about in terms of this, can help you make those decisions. Even if you already know what the decisions are, just having a document that you can look at, that you can go back to, that you can have evidence on. It also helps if you're ever in a situation where maybe what you know your wife wants and what your wife wants maybe isn't what the doctors think is the best course of action. So maybe you have a provider saying, this is really what you should do. If you're saying just as a husband, no, we should do this, even under the surrogate law, you have a legal right to make decisions. There's going to be pushback. Those providers are going to be like, no, we're the doctors. We know best. This is really what you should do. The more evidence you have supporting your wife's decision, being like, look, I'm the durable power of attorney. I have this document. I have this directive where she said she didn't want this. The easier it's going to be for you to get those wishes fulfilled and for the providers to make the decisions your wife would want.
If the doctor convinces me that
You do. So the question was, if the doctor convinces him that the doctor's plan is better than the wife's, does he, as a husband, have the right to go with the doctor's plan? And the answer is yes. So the healthcare directive, the document where you list out what you want and what you wouldn't want, isn't legally binding in a way that if you say, I don't want to be ventilated, a doctor can legally never ventilate you. It doesn't work that way. It's more of a guidance. It's ultimately going to come down to the durable power of attorney, or if there's not a durable power of attorney, the surrogate decision maker under Washington state law, they're going to have the ultimate say. And if what you say is not in line with what your wife's documents are, but it's what the provider is recommending, the provider is going to go with that. They're going to go with your decision. It ultimately comes down to that decision maker to make the decisions and to say what to do or not to do. Yeah. Last question. Yeah.
You were married. need to have someone else to designate that as well, just to cover our base. Because, you know, if you're off on vacation somewhere, you're probably together. You want to make sure that you've got a backup plan to cover your bases.
Yeah.
Just in case your person happens to be with you.
Yeah. Yeah, so what Beverly was saying is that her parents made a death binder where they laid out all the things that they wouldn't want and all the documents. And her reaction is kind of like, why do I need this? You have each other. And their point was, well, we go everywhere together. And that's true. If you're a couple and you're the only two that knows what you want, that has any of that information, and you are both in a car wreck and you're both unconscious, who's going to make those decisions, right? Who's going to know what you want? So another reason to have an alternate agent, have one of those alternate agents on your documents. And another reason to talk to all the people in your life, talk to your providers, talk to your kids, talk to your, sister, make sure everyone sort of has an understanding of what you want. So that if you're in a situation where you and your partner are unconscious or unable to make decisions, that there's other folks around that know what you want and that know what your wishes are. And I think that was our last question. So thank you all so much. I will be around for a few minutes for the in-person folks. I'm happy to answer a few more questions or talk a little bit more if you like.